Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of LUMIX Live. This is a really exciting session that we've got for you guys today. We're backing off from a little bit of the video focus that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks and diving into studio photography. So giving you guys a really good firsthand look at how the cameras work in the studio, but not just about the cameras, also a lot of the technique and some of the processes that go through from planning to actually shooting. We're going to be joined by one of the LUMIX ambassadors, Jeff Carpenter, who's been shooting with a bunch of our cameras, and then, kind of actually show you guys in a live setting how this stuff works. But before we jump over and bring Jeff into this conversation here, I want to let everybody know, if you are new to LUMIX Live, to make sure to subscribe to the LUMIX Cameras channel that you're on right now. It helps us out tremendously in continuing to bring these kinds of conversations to everybody. We go live at Thursdays, 2 p.m. every single week with different topics, different ideas, and different ways to communicate with you guys. So if you have questions, if you guys want to, hear more about a part of the topic we're talking about today, make sure to tag at LUMIX Cameras in the chat bar for YouTube here, and we'll do our best to get to all the questions that do come in. We do have our team in the chat as well that will monitor questions if we aren't able to get to them, or if they're questions that are honestly just really far off the topic for the conversation this week. And with that, basically, let's jump in and let's bring Jeff in here. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, can't complain. Having a good day.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. No, this is one of the ones that I'm more excited about, because as a photographer at heart myself, it's cool to finally get back to a little bit of photography-based conversations.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess I'll jump in just a little bit about me.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff Carpenter. I own a company called Redylightmedia. You can find that on Instagram at Redylightmedia. I also have a workshop series called Next Level Workshop. So I teach a lot of lighting. I teach a lot of photography. And I just love I don't know that I have like a specific style, but it tends to have a lot of color in it. It tends to be very, kind of contrasty, kind of fun, have a lot of shadows and highlights, all that stuff. But then, by day, I do a lot of corporate headshots. So I balance it by the quote, boring headshots. I'm able to subsidize that and do a bunch of free, stuff that's a little more creative and fun. And I justify that by teaching with it. So it's,
hey,
So I never thought that a big chunk of my business would be photography education, but it kind of it just happened, But yeah, so I've been shooting with LUMIX cameras for, I guess the first one I shot was with my first experience with the GH4, some video work, and then I liked that, but I wasn't really sure how it would work with photography. So when the G7 came out, that was like a really nice budget-friendly 4K option, because my company does a bit of video work as well. So that was kind of where my first experience with owning a LUMIX camera was, and I started just kind of bringing it around with me because it was so compact, and I started shooting more stills with it than I was doing video, and I actually really liked the kind of. So your dog's behind you, and it's adorable.
Yeah. Well, the thunderstorm outside.
I think I posted a bit, through Instagram and whatnot about, taking photos of that. And I think you contacted me with the G85.
Yep.
So you sent me one of those, and I played around with that, and then I really sunk my teeth in. And but no, so it's been a journey, and I'm really glad, especially now, as you can see, I'm in my studio as a studio photographer, having the capability to tether, albeit not natively within Capture One. Let's work on that. No. But having the ability to actually be able to tether, and I'll kind of go through my process with that and how I get my photos into Capture One, even though it's not natively supported. Mm-hmm. So I love that, because I don't think the G85 was tether capable. I know the G7 wasn't.
Yeah.
I think the GH5 might have been like the first one that was. And then,
Yep.
so I shoot predominantly with the G9. I recently picked up an S1. For this shoot today, I'm super lucky and have the S5. I had to get on my knees and beg a little for that one though. So I've got the S5 with the Sigma 85, like the new Sigma as well. So I know it looks bulky because I've got this big L bracket with the Tether Tools Air Direct, but this is a very tiny system I've got right here. But yeah, so I think just kind of that's a little bit about me and my experience with Panasonic cameras. And, you know, it's pretty straightforward. I liked the system, so I stuck with it. And the new S series, I'm kind of a little newer into that. So I did a lot of even commercial work. I did a lot of my commercial work with the G9. So anybody who says that Micro Four Thirds can't, you know, handle anything like that, don't know what they're talking about. So, but yeah, so I there is a debate of like, oh, Micro Four Thirds doesn't have the quality. I was like, it's like it's a pixel thing. It's not a. But anyway, I'm not techie. I'm not trying to get into that whatsoever. I do want to just go ahead and share a little bit about, you know, just some photos that I've taken with the G series, with the S series. Nothing crazy. And if I shared all the photos that I've ever taken, it would take way longer than an hour. So I just pulled a handful that happened to come off of a like Dropbox that I had set aside.
Yeah.
So
that's perfect.
Let me figure out how to present things. All right.
In the meantime, while Jeff's getting that set up, as a reminder, if you guys have questions throughout this session, make sure to tag at LUMIX Cameras. This way I see it in the chat bar here, and we'll be able to address some of those throughout the time. Right off the bat, one question that I can answer very quickly here was actually from Keith, was recommendations for L brackets for the S1, S1H, a bit bigger than the S5. There's a ton of L brackets out there. If you want dedicated ones, obviously cages can be a really big advantage for that. But if you're just looking for a simple L bracket, I love using the three-legged thing. Their basic, just generic L bracket, because you get everything that you'd expect out of an L bracket and it just works. So there's an option there for that. And I'm sure everyone else in the comments and Jeff probably have, you know, everyone's own opinion as to what works best for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can butt in a little bit with that too. This L bracket is 100% not made for this camera, but it still fits. So this is actually, I got it off like Craigslist. I think it was made for a D800. Like it's the really right stuff.
Yeah.
Like, Swiss L bracket, not made for this camera. It still fits on there. It's fit, so it works with this one. It works with the G9. It works with the G85. Does work with the G7. Literally, like anything that has a thread on the bottom, like it'll work. It may not sit perfectly flush, but this one just, I mean, it works. So any L bracket will work, but there are definitely ones that are made for them that, you know, if you want to do it right, you know.
Yeah.
Find those.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I'm going to jump over. I was sharing and then I stopped sharing, and I'm going to share again here.
Perfect.
All right. So share. What is going on here?
Oh man, I love technology. Let's see here. But yeah, so there's a ton of accessories that everyone can pick up for all of these different cameras. And I'm sure eventually, as the S5s actually start to ship, you'll see dedicated ones that are designed to fit closer to the bodies of those cameras. I know that there's a couple out there, I think, for the S1, S1R, and S1H, since they share the same base design on the bottom. The S1H is just slightly a little bit taller. So overall, I think we actually may have just lost Jeff. So let me jump back over to my camera here. So obviously, we've had a little bit of an issue with some of the connections here. So let's see if we can get Jeff back on. Hey.
Hey.
I think there he is. Now?
It's just my picture, though.
We have 2 of you now.
What? Okay, well, let's get this one gone. I cannot remove this participant. Can you remove me as a participant?
Yeah, let's see. Everybody, please hang on tight. We always have fun. Oh, okay, there it goes.
There it is.
All right, let's see here. Let's.
I left the meeting, but I didn't really.
Yeah.
I was too confident in my ability to use the internet.
And
I think it literally Chrome just crashed on me. That's all it was.
Yeah, there you go.
So, whatever. Now let's try this again. I will do this, share.
Hey, there it goes. You're sharing now.
So most of these pictures were taken with the G9. This one was a G9. And these were literally, I pulled these off of the internet. So these are JPEGs. These aren't even full resolution images. But you're still retaining a ton of detail even with a Micro Four Thirds camera. So it's, like I said before, I use Micro Four Thirds for all of my commercial work for 3 years or something like that. And, I've started kind of the full frame. And the only difference with that is you're going to deal with a little bit of compression, compression because the sensor is smaller. You have a different crop factor, stuff like that. But I'm just going to run through these, relatively quick. So these were, this was the G9. This is the G9. This is the G9. This was an S1R. Notice, granted, it's streamed onto the internet, so you can't really tell a difference of quality just from looking at that. But obviously, it's a bigger file. And that may be good for some people. For me, I don't need a huge file, especially since everything is mostly shared, online anyway, or on social media. I would say a typical client of mine needs a headshot either for a business card that is this big, or a or a email footer that's this big. So you don't need a huge. That being said, I've taken some shots with Micro Four Thirds that were on billboards. So it kind of depends on how far away you're looking at it. The argument of how big can you print it, that's all relative of what your viewing distance is.
Exactly.
So this was with the S1. This was S1. This was G85. Both of these actually were. These are the same location, just kind of different times of day. And this was G9 at 800 ISO. So we can zoom in a little bit. There's a little bit of grain, but the ISO performance on any of these modern cameras, in my opinion, is there's no reason why you can't go up to 800, up to 1600. All I do with these is I just throw a little bit of grain on there in post, and then you don't really notice it at all.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite shots probably one of my favorite shoots. This was out in Maui, and I just reached out to a model on Instagram, and she happened to be a hula dancer, but also did ballet. So we were able to kind of do this dancey look we had to time the waves as they were coming in. So this wave got way bigger. It literally I had to wait till it came down a little bit, or else it would just looked like I took it on a white background because the wave came up 30, 40 feet in the air. So kind of timing that out was kind of fun. This is a G9 as well, and this is a G9 as well. So like I said, most of these were taken with G9 aside from this one and these two here. Again, I could share a lot more photos. If you want to see more photos, just go to Redylightmedia on Instagram. I've got a ton of stuff on there. There may be some photos that were not taken with Panasonic cameras that I recycled because I haven't been shooting because of coronavirus.
Yeah.
But I started to recently, so I'm starting to actually post stuff I've been shooting currently. So there might be a couple throwbacks in there from a long time ago. But yeah, so, and again, I know you mentioned, Sean, questions. Definitely ask those as we go, because I'm a big fan of addressing them right then and there, rather than going back and trying to make it work. But today, that kind of concludes my here's my experience with the cameras. What I want to do today really is talk about We're actually going to do a live shoot. I've got Allie Sutton over here. She was in kind of some of those example pics. And basically she needs some photos for her YouTube cover photo. So we're going to go ahead and kind of show you my process with that. And that all starts with pre-production. So basically any of my shoots kind of start with, client or friend or whoever tells me, hey, like I need this to be, this is kind of the idea I have. And then I will go through and I will use a program called Satellite 3D, which is a amazing tool for any pre-production stuff. So let me share my screen with that and hope it doesn't crash. All right, where are we at here?
It's always the fun part, testing it over and over again beforehand. The second you hit that live, it's like, oh man.
I do not know why this won't show up on here though. All right, like it won't show up as an example, like as a window option. There it is. No, where'd it go? Okay, I'm just gonna share my entire screen. Is everybody okay with that?
Oh
Good. Yeah. All right, here we go. We'll just do this. All right, so this is Satellite 3D. It's a company called Elixir Software that's based out of Germany. And basically what it is just kind of a real, a pretty darn accurate representation before you even get in the studio. So what I'll do is I'll kind of take what the client wants and I'll just sit at my computer, with a coffee or whatever, and then I'll just kind of build the setup. That prevents me from having to, fiddle with all the lights and stuff behind me here. Obviously, I know what I'm shooting because I did this already. But what is cool, so you can actually go through and I can turn off, different lights. So I can kind of start with just the key light here, and I can turn the power up. I can turn the power down. I know I'm going to shoot with an 85, so I went ahead and had fix 85 on here. It defaults to 1/25th of a second, which is kind of irrelevant. F8, and I say it's irrelevant because in a studio, like the shutter speed doesn't always really matter that much. Because my goal typically is to try and get without a flash, like a dark screen, so it just looks black. Because that way, I know that only the strobes are going to be affecting the image, not any of the like video lights I have, or I've got a glass garage door. I know none of that ambient light is going to affect my image at all. So that's why I say it's irrelevant, but it kind of starts it defaults to F8. So basically what you can do is you can kind of sit this around and you can move this around and kind of get to where you want it to look. And then you can start adding in, like we'll go ahead and add in the background light, which is just a strobe there. So if you've seen any of my stuff on Instagram, I do a lot of like 3D like flyovers. That's actually a beta feature within this program that unfortunately isn't available to the public. But as this program is designed really just to build light setups, it's an amazing tool, especially for people who don't have a studio in their house like I do. I'm very fortunate to be able to have that, But a lot of places you got expensive studio fees, you've got expensive rates. You can't just go in and like play around. This is a really cool tool to basically allow you to build light, studio light setups from the comfort of your own home. So that is kind of where I start almost every session is with this this program. So this is kind of going to be the basis of what we want. And obviously, Allie might come in and be like, yeah, let's make the background color different. This is just a starting reference point. So that's kind of where I start with everything. That was one, Sean. I told you I'm going to trip over this table 4 times. That's one.
We'll mark that one down. 1.
Yeah. So with that though, I'm going to go ahead and kind of kick on. I'm going to kind of show you how I get my camera into to get it to show up into Capture One. Yeah. And speaking of tripping over stuff, that is why I'm shooting. I'm tethering wirelessly. This prevents me from tripping over stuff. it does have a couple drawbacks as opposed to wired tethering. Like it does do raw transfer, but the fact that it's transferring a 40, 50 megapixel or higher raw file over thin air is miraculous enough. We can't expect it to be quick too. That's just the reality of it. So what I do is one thing that's nice about LUMIX cameras that some cameras don't do is you can write it to the card and to the computer. So what I'll do is I'll do RAW and JPEG, and I'll just send the JPEG to the computer. RAW gets written to the card, and then once I'm done shooting, I'll just load them in real quick with the SD card. And if you want double redundancy, you can do dual card slot too. So that's with the newer cameras. That's what's nice too. Is I actually like the S5 having 2 SD slots rather than the QXD or whatever on the S1. I don't have any of those, so that's a very minor for me because I'm tethering most of the time anyway. I already have it going into the computer. It's like having that is not a big deal, but I do like that. That's a nice little fun feature. So what I'm going to do is with the wireless tethering, I just have to kick on the AirDirect. What that'll do is that will, I'm going to share my whole screen again, because I want to kind of show you the whole process here. Entire screen. All right, so we're still back over here. And so once this kind of kicks on, it's currently flashing. Now it just went to solid blue on this. That means that it's now created a wireless signal. So the AirDirect actually creates its own wireless signal. You can bridge to a network already, but basically on my computer, I've got an Ethernet so I can stream to you guys, and then this is going to create its own wireless signal. So I'll just go into here, and there it is, AirDirect, something, something, something. I'm pretty sure that's the serial number, and you connect. So what that does, you also have to run this ADU program. This is the AirDirect utility. Basically, it's the same thing as really tethering with a cable. It just kind of tricks your computer into thinking there's a cable connected, but it's just a wireless connection. So now that we're connected with that, it says you are now connected to AirDirect. I will then open LUMIX Tether. I also have LUMIX Tether streaming beta, but we're not using that today. Because you can't actually, I tried, you can't tether and do a stream at the same time. It only does one. So we'll kick the camera on. And on my camera, since this is actually Sean's camera that he sent me, on mine, I would say PC tether all the time. But basically, from default, they ask you want PC storage, PC tether, pick bridge, whatever. So we want the middle one. We want PC tether. That allows the camera to register that. So we see that says, choose what you want to do with it. And it should, there it is. So now we're connected in here. We're not done yet though, all right? Well, we are because I did this ahead of time. But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to settings. I do have raw transfer off for now because I'm tethering wirelessly. I don't want it to eat up all the time transferring the raw files. The big thing we want to do though is we want to go to this reference folder, and we want to go to documents. We want to find the LUMIX Live thing, say capture folder, and what that's going to do is if I go over to capture one, which is there, if I take a picture, I mean, this isn't going to be a good picture, but it will dump it into capture one now. So basically you have to have hot folders enabled under the camera setting of capture one. Same thing works with Lightroom as well if you use that. So you just have to basically inside of LUMIX Tether, you have to just tell it where to go, and then as long as you have that set up, it'll dump right into capture one or your program of choice.
Yeah.
But I would love it to work just seamlessly without having to go through LUMIX Tether. That's just my opinion, and I'm just being honest, guys, all right?
There you go.
But it does work. It works good now. Like there was some bugs in previous versions, new versions I haven't had any issue with, so that's amazing.
Cool.
And it is it's like one extra step. It's not a huge deal, but it is what it is. So it hasn't prevented me from shooting with Panasonic cameras in a studio. So it's not that big of a deal. So what we're going to do is we've got Allie over here. We've got some other extra super fun camera angles. What?
Right.
So basically, we're going to just use this, and I haven't even taken a test shot yet. We are going to just kind of build this setup from the ground up. All I did was I went into Satellite 3D, and we built that. So I'm just going to assume she's going to sit about there. I have one more thing I got to set up here and a couple things to move around. So I'm using a V-Flat from V-Flat World here. You saw in that little Elixir software that there was a little white kind of card here. All this is doing is that's just providing fill for her from this key light up here. So in this, we can kind of move around. None of these lights are in the right spot. Also, none of them are on. So let's get that before I embarrass myself with why isn't it working?
Step one, power on.
Yeah, step one. Yeah.
And just a reminder to everybody, if you have questions for Jeff about what he's doing, how he's shooting, make sure to tag at LUMIX Cameras in the chat, and then we will ask them over. While he's getting all that stuff set up, he is using an S5 as a recap. He's using the new Sigma 85mm for L mount. And for Zach, LUMIX Streaming Tether Beta. Yeah, that's the LUMIX Tether for streaming beta software we released a couple months ago. So it's a standard. It's available on Panasonic's website. I think one of my team put it in there already. Let's see. We have one other question here from Brad for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
How do you make your infinitely curvy backdrop?
Infinitely curvy backdrop. So this is I built it. I would have recommend having someone else do it. We'll just say that. It looks good on camera. I will say that. If in person, there's a couple bumps. But there was a company out of Ohio, I think, that is called Archways and Ceilings. And they basically prefabricate the curved pieces, which is kind of the part that takes a lot of time. And then all I did was I just framed up a 16 on center normal wall. If you already are at studs, it's made for that, but I wasn't, so I had to build a wall. And then I just took, it's just drywall. So if you wet the back of drywall, you can curve it. The corner is a mess just because I didn't know how to do it. And I just basically slapped on like 30 gallons of drywall mud and hoped it would work. But again, in camera, you can't tell. It bothers me a little bit like in person, but it's fine. So that is it. Archways and Ceilings. Tell them I sent you if you buy something from them. They like to hear that. I'm in no way like affiliated with them. I just, they did send that to me for free, but it was only like $200. It's not like a astronomically expensive thing. So
Yeah.
that I would say out the door, it costs under $1,000, I think, for all the wood and everything. I mean, and then, a couple years off my life from stress of doing it, but all right, so I like to build things one at a time. And when I say one at a time, I mean the one light at a time. We'll say that.
Yeah.
And I typically like to work from the back forward. So I'm going to go back here. I'm shooting with a couple ProPhoto B1s, and then also this is a D1, like an older version, so I can't control it from my fancy remote. But what I want to do is I want to turn this key light off here, and all I want to do is and you did say horizontal, right? I always check and ask them how they want me to shoot it. So basically, is that a good color? All right. See, right off the bat, we're at a good color. I need to show it to you guys, though. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Present now. Let's try a window again. Yeah, there we go. Share. Did that work?
Yes, it did.
All right, so basically I've got a strobe up here, and this is a very like Frankenstein version of a like a way to mount a gel. And what I say by that is this is actually a Pulsey Buff light mod that I took JB Weld and then stuck it onto a Profoto speed ring. So it is in no way official anything, but it does the job because it made our background a color.
Hey,
so
there
basically,
you go.
I'm still, because I used to shoot Pulsey Buff, so I had a lot of their stuff. And this just has, this is a really handy way to push, put gels in, and now you can swap the colors out really, really quickly. I've got this about, I think I've got another camera angle here. That doesn't count as a trip. That's all right, so we can see if I can tell you, this is on a little joystick, so I can move this around. All right, cool. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how far it is from the backdrop. So it's about 5-6 feet from the backdrop. The closer you bring that light to the backdrop, though, the more there's going to be a vignette. So if I bring it closer, basically it's going to be a hot spot in the middle, and it's going to fall off a little quicker. That's kind of the same concept as the inverse square law, which I don't know that we have time to get into, but basically the closer you have like the light to your subject, the quicker it's going to fall off. The further away it is, it's not going to fall off as quickly. The same thing happens on the background. As you bring that closer, it's going to hit a hot spot and going to fall off around the edges a little bit quicker. So where we have it now, I guessed, because I have done this a handful of times, where it will be pretty good. I could probably bring it a little further back because we are starting to see a teeny bit of vignetting around the edges here. But that's going to be okay, because I also want to show you can do this stuff in a relatively small space. This is not a huge space. I would say it's like a 16 by 20 room or something like that. It's not a giant studio. It's literally my garage that my wife is nice enough to allow me to put a studio in and not have her car park in here. So that's one light. So like I said, I like to kind of work in the back forward. I'll bring in the strip light in a minute though. So I'm going to do back, and I'm going to do, find my camera. It's not a big space, but I still find a way to not know where I put stuff. So let's go ahead and turn the this key light on. I am just going to turn that back light off, though, because I want to see how this just affects her as just a picture. And you did say horizontal. And I accidentally cut part of your head off. So one thing we're noticing, and this is not going to be a bad thing necessarily, it might be a little hot on her face. It might be a little overexposed. I don't mind that, though. What we will see, though, is that because this background now is starting to get illuminated, when I mix the background color with this key light, it's going to be less saturated than the original just background. And that's kind of the concept as, like, if you're taking a red paint and mix it with white paint, you're going to get like a pink. Basically, you're just getting a desaturated red. Same concept applies here. We have a neutral color light mixed with a colored light. If it's gonna desaturate it a little bit, which actually could play to our advantage because the other pink may have been a little too dark. So let's go ahead and turn that on. We'll just take a quick tester here. So that might be two. So notice between, can you hold that for me? Thank you. Between this one and this one. So notice that the background looks different, right? And the reason for that, again, is because the key light here is affecting that background because I've got the light too bright or I've got it too far away and the light's not spilling over quite as much. So basically all we have to do is, if we want the background to be more like the first one, we just have to make sure none of this light is spilling onto that background. So that's just a matter of moving it around a little bit. I did say it was a little overexposed, so we can probably bring the power down just a tiny bit. just for kicks, we'll bring the power down one stop. So that might be a little underexposed on her face now, but it'll be. So now it's a little underexposed. But you see what I'm doing here, right? Without moving that, I did affect the background color. I think we can probably meet in the middle, go just a half stop. And then what we can do is we can either move this around. So I can bring this closer. When I bring it closer, I'm going to have to bring the power down. Another thing I can do is I can bring her further away too. So again, just making it so that background light's not going to hit the background. So now we're starting to kind of meet in the middle. We've got a nice, exposure on her face. We have a relatively saturated background color. At this point, it's just kind of, let's tweak it, make sure she's getting what she wants. So that is where I will say, is there anything we need to change?
I would like a fan.
She wants a fan. We have one. Always be prepared, even when you don't think you need to. So I'm going to probably put it here. Make sure it's facing the right direction. And I've got this handy thing right here. That was like the best thing I ever installed here, was literally the overhead.
Shop style power.
Yeah, oh, it's great. Is that going to be enough? Is that good? All right.
So remind everybody, if you guys have questions.
All right, so now we've got good call on the fan. We do have one more light that we haven't turned on, though. And we may not need it. Like, I have it there just in case. We'll kick it on, and we'll play around with it just to kind of see. All this is just a strip box, rim light, just to kind of light up the side of her, separate her from the background a little bit. But because it's a lit up background, you don't really need a bunch of separation there. But did that even go off? Oh, it did. All right, so we have just a little bit of rim here. You can see like in the shoulder here. So I think we'll keep it. There's no reason not to have it. I already set it up. So we'll go ahead and snap some. And basically, what I'm really doing with this is I'm making sure, I'm going to raise this light up a tiny bit because I am getting it in the shot a little bit. So one thing that I have to kind of keep an eye out is this is going to be for her YouTube channel. And I'm moving this back a little bit because there is a bit of vignetting around that corner. Like I said, the further away you move it, it gives time for that light to spread out, so you won't have that vignette. But she wants to. Basically, the only rule with this is don't ever put it in front of them, because when you put it in front of them, that will hit them directly in the face and it won't look good. So we want it to be, the furthest back you want to go is about here, where it's right over her head. So it's directly over her head here. That's just one thing to kind of keep in mind, because 99% of the time, if you set a light up, you can also boom this. You don't have to boom it. You can do it off the ground as well. But 99% of the time, you'll set this up, and the model will stand right here, right in, because they're like, oh, it's the light. I should stand in front of it. So you just kind of have to tell them to take a step forward, and then we'll be good. But where was I? All right. So we've got rim light. We've got background light. I moved it back just a tiny bit in order to get a little bit of that spread. I raised this one up a tad. And what I was getting at before is the one thing I really have to make sure I'm doing here is getting all the way around her, as I'm not cutting off any of her top of her head or anything. Like on a normal headshot, I might do this, but with this, because she wants to edit multiple photos together. So we have to make sure that we have an edge all the way around. That's going to help with, to make sure that she can go ahead and edit those all together at one time. So basically she has different props and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and, you know, pull different whatever she needs to do. So we can kind of put them all in a row. So I'm just making sure that I have all around her is that. But I'm noticing there's a little bit of a darker section on this right side of the frame here.
Yeah.
And that's really just because this is kind of angled a little bit off kilter here. So I'm just going to straighten that up a little. And always make sure, especially when a light is directly on top of your model, that you have a sandbag on this thing. Because the last thing you want is this to fall on somebody. And I don't think PPA insurance will cover that.
So, probably not.
So let's go ahead and see if that's a little bit better. That's a lot better. So we don't have quite as much of a fall off on there. I do want to show you how easily it is to change the color and change the look of this. So this is the color that I think you want, right? So we'll keep this here. I have a nifty little binder that has all of my gels in it, and I have it labeled to where it says which gel is what. So we'll just go ahead and do we'll do a blue. Apparently didn't organize this last time because the blue was not in its sleeve. So maybe I shouldn't do blue. All right, there we go. So we'll put this over here. I always try and keep that organized. Inevitably, while I'm shooting, it becomes very unorganized. But we'll go ahead and just, again, this is just to kind of show you how easily it is to swap this out. And if you don't have a little system like that, I will literally just take a rubber band or something like that and just stick it on there. It doesn't have to look pretty. A lot of times it doesn't. So just make sure, like any way you can get a gel on there, will work. So now we just really quickly swapped out the blue or the pink for the blue. You can do this all day. You can swap out any color you want. And I didn't talk about this. I did kind of mention that I put it here. This V-flat, what that's doing is that is taking light from this key light, bouncing up, and then filling up a little bit under her nose and chin, just to kind of make it so it's not as drastic of a shadow. But it's not necessary. If you don't have one, you don't need it. You can literally use any sort of kind of fill card. It also does work as a little bit of like a posing table too, if you want it. So that's kind of a nice way to use it as well. So we'll go ahead and swap back to the pink, or really technically it's light rose. But yeah, so that's kind of just a standard, this is actually like a shoot that she needed. It's not like we invented this just for this session. So this is a very kind of candid look into how we would do a shoot. Although in real life, I would talk more to her and less to a camera. So that's another thing that I'm big on is communication when you're talking to, she's a professional model, so she can kind of just, she has her own flow and she knows what to do with posing and all that stuff. A lot of the people that I work with hate being in front of a camera and quite frankly just like don't want to be there. So you have to find a way to get a good reaction out of them, to get a good, picture, even though they might not be like overly willing to do it. So that's just something to keep in mind. So like I would normally be talking more to her than I am to you guys on a real shoot, but she doesn't need me to talk to her. She knows what she's doing. So. And you'll notice that's another thing that's kind of nice about most studio strobes will have this is, I don't know if you can hear the beep, but literally every time it beeps, like she's moving, which is nice because then you get a different look every single time and it's not the same like stare at the camera, blank face. So notice her, she's changing her body position, she's changing her facial expression, she's smiling, she's not smiling, she's, changing it up every single time that I take the photo. And that's one thing you can tell even a client is be like, hey, there's going to be a beep. Once you hear that, just kind of shift your body position a little bit. You don't need to sit there and tell them exactly where to put their hands or any of that stuff. One thing too, kind of back on the camera, stuff is I always use, because I'm shooting people most of the time, I'm always using the eye autofocus. I'm not saying that it's made me lazy, but it definitely is super easy because I don't have to, old DSLRs, you'd have to go and kind of compose it, lock, and then turn your camera to get the composition right. This is the entire screen. I don't know if you can even see that. Uh-oh, hold up. So it's even picking it up from here. Can you guys see that?
Probably not with the size of it.
Okay, but, well, either way, you can see that there's, basically it creates a box and a crosshair on whichever eye that it thinks is the right one, which is typically going to be the closer eye. And I'm having no issue with focus with a non-native Panasonic lens with the S5. So this is the first time I've used any of these cameras, FYI. I'm taking a behind-the-scenes photo because I told myself I would, and then I inevitably will forget. Although I'm shooting in 85, so I'd have to go a lot further back to really do it. But yeah, so having the eye autofocus, especially for portraits, headshots, is nice. You don't have to go ahead. You don't have to recompose. It's gonna find that eye every single time. One thing I love about the G9 too is I probably took thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures. I would say there's probably 3 of them that it missed focus, and I'm not exaggerating either. The focus on Micro Four Thirds is really great because you don't have that compression either. So that's one of the advantages of having a smaller sensor is more is going to be in focus whilst letting in the same amount of light. So, do you like my use of whilst?
Yeah. High class cool. There, Jeff.
Do you
High class.
Grab any other props or? Really could. It's a little harder to do it that way because it miite take too long.
Are there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? I've just been rambling on and forgetting to drink my water.
Yeah, let's see what we've got. Let's see. We've been answering a lot of them actually, because they're a couple of them were shooting vlog in still photos. What's the is there an advantage there? Some people will
I've never done that.
Yeah. And actually it's probably worth mentioning actually for those that may have not seen the text answer we gave back. If you're shooting stills, there's no need to shoot vlog. Raw stills encapsulates infinitely more detail, dynamic range, bit depth than a vlog color profile would give you because vlog was designed for video, which is essentially JPEGs at 8-bit or 10-bit. So if you're shooting stills, just shoot raw. You're going to have much more flexibility with it.
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, I'm shooting raw and JPEG right now because I'm tethering wirelessly. It's quicker to get the JPEGs will show up infinitely faster than the raw file, even though it does have raw capability. And then I write the raw to the card and just transfer it later. So I'm going to take another photo that's not so dark. That one doesn't look very good. That's better. All right.
So, Jeff, I actually have a question for you. So, when you're shooting in a studio, are you typically shooting shooting in stills, a singular shot, or do you shoot burst shooting? Is there a certain method that you would use normally?
I shoot. I try not to overshoot because here's the thing: when you overshoot in burst mode, I think there's a time and place for it. There's definitely these cameras have amazing burst capabilities, but I think that's really more for, at least is my opinion, more for sports, wildlife, something where it's fast moving. Even here, because a lot of these strobes don't have, you can burst, but you have to turn the power way down in order to compensate for that. For my style, I always shoot singular. And I like to take a breath in between. I don't want to, kind of shoot it as if it were film. You don't have an infinite amount of storage. You tend to not have the, you won't have to go through as many photos. You don't have to, because I don't know. So for me personally, I tend to undershoot. I think maybe not undershoot. I think I shoot just the right amount. But by tethering, Allie can look over at the screen like as they're coming in, and she can be like, I could have this in front of her, and she could be making her selections like as we go in real time, because she can run Capture One better than a lot of photographers can, because she's been doing it for so long with me. So she's like, oh, making fives and making a color and all this stuff. So after we're done shooting and I load the raws in, we go, and then she makes all of her selections like right then and there. That prevents the rare occurrence of you send a gallery and then they're like, I don't like anything. At least doing it now, they know what they have, and if we need to keep shooting, we can, and they don't have to come back. I don't have to take another day out of my time. 99% of the time, or maybe 100% of the time, you won't be able to charge for that reshoot if it was your fault. So
exactly.
So you just got to take that into consideration. So just like using the tools that are available to you, tethering in this case, or the autofocus, where I know that I think one issue with people that don't want to tether, or they don't want to send every photo to a client, is that, well, what if it's out of focus? Like I've never had to think about that, because with the focus on these cameras, for stills at least, I don't shoot video a ton. For stills, I haven't had to worry about an out of focus photo. And if it is like a very, very rare occurrence.
Yeah.
Again, in studio, I'm shooting, what's my aperture at?
That was actually going to be that was actually going to be my next question to you is, when it comes to like the shooting part of it, what mode do you shoot in? Is there certain aperture that you tend to like to keep to?
I will kind of start around 7.1. My dehumidifier just filled up. That's what that beeping is. So I'll typically start at f7, around there. I don't tend to shoot at like a really wide aperture in a studio. Sometimes for a like aesthetic look, I might, if I want that really shallow depth of field, like in a beauty portrait. The problem with that is you need light to get focus, and the light is then going to kind of affect the shot a little bit. Even if I have like a window open, like it'll help with focus a ton. Although with the electronic kind of focus with these cameras, you can focus in almost pitch black. Like it'll just, in the viewfinder, raise the ISO like a zillion times, but it won't show up in the picture.
Yeah.
Just for viewing purposes, not to be confused with anything else. Like just so you can see it. It'll basically, like in the electronic viewfinder, if you don't have constant preview on, it'll just make it brighter so you can see. But a lot of times I'll shoot around like, I'll go down like f4 sometimes in a studio. And then other times, if I really want that like kind of, artistic look or whatever with the shallower depth of field, it doesn't matter as far as like, this, because I'm on a plain background. The only thing you're going to get is you might get like her eye, and then her ear and her nose is already out of focus at a, at a wider aperture.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's actually like in a studio with strobes that are, having too much light, because you can only bring these down so far as power is concerned. So if you're at 1.4, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. We're here. So I'm going to go down to 1.4. For anybody that doesn't understand the relationship between aperture and flash, I will show you right now. Basically, as you open up your aperture, that for all intents and purposes increases your flash power. It didn't really, like the flash power stayed the same, but because we have, and this is just, I'm going to warn you, it's going to be an awful photo. You look great, but it's going to be super overexposed. So basically what happened is the aperture is letting so much light in that I didn't have to turn the power up for these to get more light. So I'm going to, again, take another photo real quick so it doesn't look bad. I don't want people tuning in and be like, what is this hack doing here? So basically, the relationship between aperture and flash is that, the more wide open or the lower number your aperture is, the brighter your flash will be. That can actually work in your advantage for, I would say, like wedding shooters or event shooters that want to kind of change that up on the fly really quickly. I kind of learned that quickly when I would shoot on-camera flash at events, like early in my career, is I would take one photo and be like, oh, it's too dark. And then rather than fiddling with the back of the flash, I can just open up my aperture, a stop, and then take it again, and it's perfect exposure. And they don't know. I could be like, oh, let's do one more. You take it. They don't know that you didn't know what you were doing the first time. So kind of having that, knowing that relationship actually helps a ton. But what I want to do here, so I said earlier that I don't like, I want to have it like a black frame to where I don't have anything affecting the image. So I'm going to take this shot. I'm going to go to 1.4, and we're going to take a photo, and you'll notice probably had a little bit of an issue finding focus, but that is from the video light, right? So that's the exposure from that. If I turn that off, we can go down to, let's go to ISO 50. Let's go to low ISO. That'll help a little. We can probably play with that. That's not bad, but it's pretty dark, but it's not, perfectly dark. But so we were at F5. So that's like 4 stops down, I think. I don't know. I'm not good with math. So what we're going to do is we are going to go on this. I don't even know if I can go that low. 1, 2, 3. No, I can't go that low. So this is kind of my issue with this, is if you shoot too wide open an aperture, your flash literally can't go that low. So I'm just going to try it with the key light. Let's go ahead and turn off that one, and we'll turn this one off. And we'll see, it'll still be overexposed. Yeah. What I could do, though, is I can bring this light further back. Like, there's ways around it, but this is just kind of an example of why I don't typically shoot wide open in a studio. Actually, that's not bad. That looks all right. Okay, well, apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. But no, so basically I'm at the lowest possible power on this, and we do have a little bit of a kicker from that. So let's kind of play with this. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I'll turn the background light on again.
It's kind of one of the cool things with shooting tethered and shooting with the mirrorless cameras is that you can do these kinds of things and you see the results immediately. And
right. And I know why it's darker than I thought it would be is because I went down to 50 ISO. So I'm like, went down 6 stops instead of 5. So let's just go back to 100. We'll check that. The background light's going to be too much. That's too much. But you start to get this really kind of creamy look with that, which I think is cool. So that's where I would use this as a, open aperture in a studio. Is you get this like really did I say creamy already? Very creamy look. I don't know. You get the from where her head is. I'm gonna go ahead and lower this a little bit, just a touch here. Want a little more catch light in her eye there. Bring it off. I'll feather it away from the background a little bit. So there's a whole lot of stuff, obviously, that I didn't talk about when it comes to lighting and stuff like that. But cool. Yeah, I dig it. So this is something I wouldn't normally do. I wouldn't normally shoot wide open in a studio, but it's kind of fun to kind of see it and do it. And I'm curious how close I can get with this lens where it'll still focus. So that you really, as you get closer, so lens compression has a lot to do with distance to the subject. You won't get as much, you won't get as much depth of field from there as you will from here. Obviously, it's a different crop. And I think that is the limit there, is how close I can get. So you start to get a ton of, from her eye to her ear is completely out of focus at that point. Her hair on the right side of the frame is completely out of focus. But yeah, so that's kind of just a quick demo of that. And I do want to take, I kind of like some of these, so I might actually take it behind the scenes real quick.
Yeah, do it, man. Do it, man.
Yeah, I told you to remind me, and
yeah, no, and that's
this in the background here. How do I do this? Where I need like an assistant for this. But yeah, if anybody has any other questions, like that pretty much wraps up my very down and dirty explanation of lighting. If anybody wants to learn more about lighting, I definitely have some online like I'll do virtual workshops. I'm doing one-on-one workshops now. I'm gonna start doing group workshops again. Let me share a very quick where is it? Oh, you know what? I don't have it pulled up. Redylightmedia on Instagram. I had something pulled up and then Chrome crashed earlier in the show, so I don't have it pulled up. So if you want, nextlevelworkshops.com or Redylightmedia on Instagram. I answer a fair amount of questions. I try to get to all of the DMs if I can. But yeah, so if anybody has any questions that they can't think of right now, but they have something later, just shoot me a message. I'll definitely do everything I can to answer that. And if you want to kind of take your lighting to the next level, that's why it's called Next Level Workshops.
Clever.
So we do that. So I'm currently working on an e-course that will hopefully be out sooner than later. But in the meantime, I do one-on-one kind of this style of, it'll be a, in the studio typically, or if you're in the Tennessee area outside of Nashville and you want to come do one in person, I'm here. So, but yeah, it was great being here, and thank you for having me. And that's that.
Yeah, no.
How was I on time? Oh, 2 minutes over.
Hey, man. No, that's perfect. And for everyone, again, as Jeff was saying, this was a very different kind of platform than what we've normally done for LUMIX Live. Those that have been watching with us for a while know that a lot of times we have a ton of back and forth conversations, but Jeff has the unique ability to actually show everybody how the BTS works, how to set this lighting up, how to actually work with your clients and things. So hopefully everyone got a lot out of this. These streams are always cataloged on our YouTube channel, so you'll always be able to go back and replay this. I know there were a couple people that had questions about, how Jeff was getting tethered into Capture One. I think, Jeff, you did a great explanation at the beginning of the steps you go through getting it into that. It ends up becoming a really useful tool for those. So again, this content's going to stay live on the YouTube channel. As Jeff said, you can find him at all of those locations. We will add the links in the description below for all of the locations where you can follow Jeff. You can see his work. You can reach out and check out the courses that he's doing. And yeah, unless anybody has any other questions, we'll probably call it for the day. Let's see what we got. Yeah, pretty much looks like we got all the questions, which Jeff honestly means that you've got a really good explanation process of showing and explaining people.
Covered all the basics.
Yeah.
Well, no, thank you again for having me, and I'm gonna regret sending this camera back, but I guess I have to.
We'll talk after this. It's all good.
I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, once again, everybody, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us and watch this episode of LUMIX Live. Like we said, a little bit of a different platform, obviously a different, little more challenging platform as we saw at the beginning of this session. But if you guys like seeing this kind of content and you want to see more, or you want to see something that you haven't seen us cover yet, that you're really, burning to learn, make sure to leave a comment on this video when it's posted up on YouTube. We are collecting comments from last week's video and this week's video to create our stream for next week, which is a total Ask Us Anything stream based on what you guys have been asking. So that's going to probably be more of a talking head style video just because of the timing between now and next week. But if we get enough responses for certain things that, you guys liked seeing this style of demonstration, let us know in the comments. I would love to do more of this. For the photographers out there, we want you guys to know that we're always in this with photographers as well. Panasonic isn't just about video. So we do want to mix more photo and video together with you guys. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon on this channel so that you're getting the notifications. You guys know when we're going to be going live. It helps us out tremendously in growing this channel and getting you guys more information and more connection with all of our team here at Panasonic and the ambassadors and photographers that use our equipment. So with that, thanks again. We'll see you guys next Thursday at 2 p.m. for our Ask Me Anything. Take care.